Ethan moved carefully through the ruins of the ancient alien temple. The wind howled around him like a ghost crying in the night. Dust floated in the air, and broken statues watched him like silent guardians. He came here to look for old alien tech, something he could sell for credits. But tonight felt different. Something was wrong. He felt it in his bones. Then he heard it, a sound soft at first, like a low whisper. Then it grew louder, more clear. It was a voice, a girl's voice, crying out in pain. It echoed through the halls like a broken song. Ethan froze. He was supposed to be alone. Who else would be out here in this dead place? He followed the sound, step by step. His boots crunched over loose stones and old bones. The walls around him were covered in glowing alien symbols, but he didn't stop to read them. The voice came again, closer now. And then he found her in the center of a dark chamber. Under a shaft of moonlight, an alien girl was chained to a stone pillar. Her skin shimmered like silver, but it was bruised and torn. Her eyes were half open, filled with pain and anger. Thick metal cuffs wrapped around her arms and legs, chains stretched from her body to the ground, glowing faintly. She looked weak, like she hadn't eaten in days. Ethan stepped closer. Her head turned slowly, and she bared her teeth. "Stay away," she hissed, her voice rough and broken. "I'll kill you if you touch me." Ethan didn't raise his weapon. He didn't move back either. He took off his backpack, pulled out a small bottle of water, and held it out to her. "You look like you need this more than I do," he said. She stared at him like he was mad. Her hands shook as she tried to lift one, but the chains held her tight. She groaned in pain, then gave up. Ethan slowly stepped forward and held the bottle to her lips. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she drank, not all of it, just a few small sips, but her eyes softened, just a little. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Voice low, Ethan shrugged. "Why not?" He replied, "You're hurt, and no one else is around. You're human," she said like it was poison. "Your kind doesn't help others." Ethan chuckled softly. "Maybe I'm just the dumb one." She looked away, ashamed or maybe just tired. He studied the chains, alien metal, glowing blue lines pulsing through it. No simple lock, no keyhole. He'd need tools, special cutters, maybe a plasma torch. He couldn't break it here, not yet. "What's your name?" he asked. She didn't answer. Her eyes closed. He sighed and stood up. "I'll come back," he said. "I'll bring the right tools." As he turned to leave, he heard something, a voice not hers, but others. Coming from the hallway, he ducked behind a pillar and held his breath. Figures walked into the room, 3 of them, alien soldiers, tall and cold-eyed. They looked at the girl with disgust. "She's still alive?" One of them said, "I thought the chains would have drained her by now. Let her die." Another spat. "She betrayed us." The girl didn't speak, didn't even look at them. Her body tensed, but she stayed silent. The third one stepped closer to her and raised a knife. "Maybe we should finish it," he growled, "just to be sure." Ethan reached into his pack and threw a rock toward the far hallway. The noise echoed loudly. All 3 turned. Alert, weapons drawn. "Who's there?" One barked. "Could be scavengers." Another muttered, "Let's check it out." They rushed away toward the noise. Ethan waited a few more seconds, then ran to the girl. She opened her eyes, surprised. "They were your people?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "They left me here," she said. "They called it punishment." Ethan clenched his jaw. "That's not right," he said. "No one deserves this." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she whispered, "Lysera." "What?" "My name," she said softly. "It's Lysera." Ethan gave a small smile. "Nice to meet you, Lysera." But before he could say more, a loud thud echoed behind them. A shadow moved along the wall. Someone or something was still there. Watching them both from the dark, the air grew colder as Ethan stood frozen in place. He could feel someone watching, but the shadows gave no answer. Lysera's chains rattled softly as she shifted, her eyes scanning the dark corners of the chamber. A sudden breathless silence filled the ruins. Ethan grabbed a rusted metal rod from the floor, not much of a weapon, but it was all he had. Then came a sound, soft footsteps, quick and sharp, like claws on stone. He stepped in front of Lysera without thinking. From the hallway, a small drone flew in, spinning and scanning. It stopped in front of Lysera's face. Blinking red, she flinched, her body trembling. Ethan raised the rod, ready to strike. But the drone suddenly flew away. Back into the tunnel like it was reporting something, Lysera whispered. "They found me again." Ethan looked at her, confused. "Who?" "My former squad," she said. Her voice flat and hollow. "They're not just soldiers, they're hunters now." Ethan's grip on the rod tightened. "So they chained you here, then hunted you for fun?" She didn't answer. Her silence was enough. He crouched beside her, inspecting the cuffs again. "Then we better move fast before they come back," he said. She turned her head toward him, studying his face. "You don't even know who I am, yet you're risking your life." "You already told me your name," he said with a half smile. "That's more than I had before." He reached into his bag and pulled out a small toolkit. It wasn't much, but maybe it could help weaken. The chain locks. He began working on the wrist cuff while Lysera stared at the moonlight, breaking through a hole in the ceiling. She spoke again, her voice distant. "They said I was weak because I didn't follow the kill order." Ethan didn't respond, letting her speak. "I refused to burn a village full of unarmed creatures, so they beat me, stripped me of rank, and brought me here. They said if I lived with shame for 7 days, maybe I'd learn." He looked up at her, his face hard. "That's not justice. That's cruelty." "They think mercy is weakness," she said. Ethan worked the tool under the cuff. A small spark flared. "Maybe they're afraid of mercy," he muttered. The metal cracked slightly, and Lysera hissed as the cuff sparked again. Ethan pulled back, checking her pulse and breathing. "I'm fine," she said. "Keep going." Suddenly, voices echoed down the hall again. Ethan cursed under his breath. 3 shadows approached. The same soldiers from before, this time. They were not laughing. They held weapons drawn. Scanning the chamber with glowing red optics. "Still alive," one of them said, walking forward. "She doesn't die easy." Another replied. Ethan ducked behind the pillar again, clutching the rod tight. The soldier stepped closer to Lysera, not seeing him. "She's a stain on our name," said the one with the long rifle. "We erase her now, quick and clean." Lysera didn't even flinch. She kept her eyes closed. Breathing slowly, the soldier raised the rifle, aiming at her chest. Ethan didn't think. He leapt from the shadows and smashed the rod into the soldier's arm. The rifle fired into the stone wall with a loud blast. Sparks flew as the other. 2 soldiers turned toward him in shock. "What the human?" One shouted. Ethan swung again, but they dodged and knocked him to the floor. One soldier raised a boot to crush him, but before it came down, Lysera let out a roar. Her chained hand shot out and grabbed the soldier's leg, twisting it hard. The crack of bone echoed across the chamber. The soldier screamed and collapsed. The other 2 hesitated, now unsure. "She still has strength," one said nervously. "Retreat," the other ordered, pulling his wounded partner away. "We'll finish her later, with backup." They vanished into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of blood and shame. Ethan groaned and sat up, rubbing his shoulder. Lysera breathed heavily, her hands shaking from the strain. "You didn't have to do that," she said. Ethan looked at her, blood on his lip. "Neither did you." They stared at each other in silence for a long moment. Ethan wiped the dust from his tool and returned to the cuff. It finally gave a loud pop and slid open. Her right arm was free. Lysera looked at it with wide eyes, then flexed her fingers. Slowly, 1 arm free, but 3 more to go. "Let's keep going," Ethan said. "But next time, I'm bringing explosives." Lysera smiled for the first time. Not a full smile, but a small, tired one. Then her face turned serious again as she whispered, "They'll be back with more." Ethan nodded. "Then we better finish fast." Unseen by both of them, deep in the ruins, a red beacon pulsed to life. A silent signal was sent into the sky. Someone else now knew where they were, and that someone wasn't coming to help. The firelight flickered across Lysera's face as she sat in silence. Her freed arm rested on her lap, still trembling from the earlier fight. Ethan sat across from her, sharpening a broken knife on a flat stone. Neither of them spoke. The air between them was heavy, not just with dust, but with questions. Finally, Lysera broke the silence. "You're strange," she said quietly. Ethan glanced up, one brow raised. "That's one way to start a compliment. I don't mean it as a compliment," she replied. "You're a human. You don't owe me anything. You could have walked away 10 times by now." Ethan blew the dust off the knife and shrugged. "I don't like walking away," he said. "Especially not when someone's chained to a rock and left for dead." She narrowed her eyes. "Is this a trick? Do you want something from me? Some humans think if they help, they deserve payment." Ethan snorted and tossed the knife down. "You think I'm saving you for a reward? I don't even know if I'll survive the next attack. I'm just doing the right thing." Lysera didn't answer. Instead, she stared into the fire, lost in thought. Ethan leaned back against the wall and watched the smoke swirl toward the cracked ceiling. He wanted to ask about her past, about her people, but he waited. He could see the storm in her eyes, and he didn't want to push it. "My kind doesn't believe in mercy," she said after a long pause. "We were trained since birth to be warriors, to obey, to fight, to win. I questioned one command, one order, and that made me a traitor." Ethan nodded slowly. "And that's why they chained you here." Lysera's jaw tightened. "They said I was weak, that I let feelings cloud my mission, but I couldn't destroy those creatures. They were unarmed, frightened, hiding with their young." She looked up at Ethan, her voice sharper now. "I never expected someone from your kind to be the one who understood. Your people are selfish, greedy, loud, yet you stayed." Ethan gave a dry laugh. "Not exactly high praise, but I'll take it." Lysera watched him for a long moment. "Why do you care?" she asked again, slower this time. "What makes a human risk his life for someone like me?" Ethan leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "Because someone once saved me, when I didn't deserve it, and now I guess I'm returning the favor." A faint sound echoed down the tunnel, metal scraping stone. Both of them went quiet. Ethan stood and grabbed the knife. Lysera pulled her freed arm behind her back, hiding the fact that it was no longer chained. The steps drew closer, but only one figure appeared in the entrance. It was a small creature, round and hunched, with glowing green eyes. It held up a hand, shaking. "No hurt," it whispered in broken English. "Help. Bring this." It stepped forward and set a small object on the ground, a cylinder of metal with blinking lights. Then it turned and scurried back into the dark without waiting for a reply. Ethan moved forward and picked it up. It was a tool alien made, but not a weapon. He turned it slowly in his hands, then looked at Lysera. This could work on your leg restraints. Why would someone help us?" she asked with suspicion. "That creature was not part of my kind," Ethan shrugged. "Maybe kindness spreads faster than fear." He knelt beside her and pressed the device to the cuff on her ankle. It buzzed and glowed, then clicked. The cuff popped open. Lysera blinked in shock. She moved her foot for the first time in days. 2 chains gone, 2 remaining. But they both knew time was running short. Ethan stood and placed the tool gently on her other side. "Let's keep going," he said, "before your old friends return." With new toys, Lysera stared at the device, her lips parted. Then she whispered something under her breath. Ethan leaned closer. "What was that?" "I said, thank you," she said softly. "It's not something we say often." Ethan gave her a tired smile. "Get used to it," he said. "You're going to hear it a lot more." From far above, the clouds began to gather. Storm winds picked up outside the ruins, and somewhere beyond the broken hills, a warship's engines roared to life. They were coming, but this time, Lysera was no longer alone. Asterisk, the moment the third cuff snapped open, Lysera screamed. Not from relief, but from something far worse. Her body arched back, her veins glowing with a sick green light. Ethan jumped back in shock as her skin pulsed with energy. The alien device that freed her now sparked and sizzled in the dirt. She gasped for air, her chest rising and falling too fast. Then she stopped breathing altogether. "Lysera!" Ethan shouted, rushing to her side. He touched her shoulder, but it felt like fire. Her body was burning from the inside. She convulsed, eyes wide open but unfocused. And then, silence. No movement, no breath. Just glowing skin and a cold stillness that struck Ethan's heart. He dropped to his knees, not caring about the heat or the danger. He grabbed her face gently and shouted her name again. Nothing. She was slipping away. Ethan's mind raced. He looked around, desperate for anything that could help. The old medkit in his bag had human tools, human drugs. Would any of it work on an alien girl with unknown biology? Probably not, but he had to try. He pulled out an injector and scanned the labels. Adrenaline, pain suppressants, immune boosters. None of them were made for her. Still, he loaded a small dose of adrenaline and pressed it against her neck. "Come on, Lysera," he whispered. "Don't let them win." He injected the serum and waited. 1 second, 2 seconds, her fingers switched. Then her back arched again, her mouth opened in a silent cry. Ethan grabbed her wrist, feeling her pulse weak, but there. "Stay with me," he said, his voice trembling. "You're not dying here." Her eyes flickered, light swimming behind them like trapped stars. She whispered something, barely audible. "Poison." "In the cuffs. They set it to kill if too many were opened." Ethan felt a chill run through him. They planned this, even if someone tried to rescue her. They wanted her dead. He reached for the glowing cuff still locked around her left ankle and upper arm. There had to be a way to disable them safely. The device was fried, it sparked and smoked beside them. Useless now. He reached for his toolkit again, then paused. A memory flashed in his mind, an old signal blocker he once built. It was meant for drones, but maybe, just maybe, it could block the energy flowing through the chains. He pulled out a small round disc with wires sticking out, attached it to the cuff and powered it on. The green glow dimmed slightly. Lysera stopped shaking. Her breathing returned shallow but steady. Ethan exhaled sharply, relief washing over him like rain. She looked at him with heavy eyes. "You still here?" she whispered. He nodded. "Not going anywhere. I thought I was." "Gone," she said, voice dry like dust. "You almost were," Ethan replied. "But I'm too stubborn to let that happen." He lifted her gently and placed her against the wall. She was too weak to sit on her own. He poured a few drops of water into her mouth. Her lips moved slightly in thanks. Though she didn't speak, hours passed slowly, the fire dying down to soft embers. Ethan sat beside her, keeping watch with tired eyes. Every sound outside made. His hand moved toward his knife, but no one came, not yet. As dawn broke through the cracks in the ruins, a strange sound filled the air, a low hum, deep and vibrating, like the voice of a sleeping giant. Ethan looked around, confused. Lysera opened her eyes slightly and said, "It's waking up. What is?" Ethan asked, but she had already closed her eyes again. He stood slowly and followed the sound deeper into the ruins. It came from beneath the floor, behind an old broken wall. He pushed aside loose stones and found something buried there. A large metal plate, smooth and covered in alien symbols. The symbols were the same as those on Lysera's cuffs, but now they were glowing, reacting to something. He touched one, and the ground beneath his feet shook. Then a crack opened, revealing stairs going deep underground. He turned back to check. On Lysera, she was still unconscious but breathing. He looked at the stairs, then back at her. Whatever was down there might hold answers, or more danger. But if there was any chance to save her completely, it had to be taken. Ethan picked up the knife, lit a new torch, and stepped onto the first stair. Below him, the hum grew louder, and something ancient waited to meet him. The walls breathed. That was the first thing Ethan noticed as he stepped deeper into the hidden stairwell. The metal around him seemed alive, pulsing with a soft glow like veins under skin. Every step echoed like thunder, though he walked slowly and lightly. He didn't know if the place welcomed him or warned him, but it was clear this place was not dead. It had only been sleeping. Up above, Lysera stirred, her fingers twitching, her breath sharpening. The cuff still glowed faintly around her ankle and arm, but the poison's hold had weakened. Something inside her chest began to burn, not with pain this time, but heat. She felt her heartbeat thump louder, deeper, stronger. She gasped, her eyes flying open. They no longer shimmered like silver. Now they burned like fire. She sat up slowly, unsteady but rising. She didn't understand what was happening. Her body felt strange, lighter, stronger. The chains on her wrist hummed and vibrated, reacting to her skin. She looked down and whispered, "What are you?" Far below, Ethan reached the bottom of the stairwell. The room ahead looked like a buried heart made of light and steel. A massive machine sat in the center, humming with ancient power. Symbols danced across its surface, shifting like words that couldn't decide what to say. But one thing stood out: his handprint. Glowing, carved into the front panel. He didn't know why, but it matched his size exactly. He hesitated, then slowly placed his palm against it. The machine roared, lights flashing, and a low voice echoed all around him. "Command link accepted." It said in a language he somehow understood. "Energy routing, compatible species detected." Ethan stepped back in shock. Compatible species? With what? At that same moment, Lysera cried out above. The final cuff around her ankle snapped open by itself. The glow faded, and the chains fell silent. She was free. She stood, shaky but tall. Then she looked down at her hands. Power crackled across her fingers, pure energy, golden and warm. She didn't know how she was doing it, but her body was responding to something below. To him, she followed the source, stumbling toward the broken wall Ethan had gone through. Her steps were slow at first, but then stronger. Her body seemed to remember a version of herself she had never known, not just a warrior, something more. Ethan stood in the machine chamber, staring at the glowing console in front of him. He didn't understand half the words that scrolled by, but one kept repeating, "Bond link established." "Who are you bonding with?" he muttered aloud. A voice answered, not the machine's this time, but Lysera's from behind him. "With me," she said. Stepping into the room, her eyes glowing, Ethan turned and froze. She didn't look like the broken girl from before. She looked like a flame given shape, strong, wild, and alive. "Lysera?" he asked carefully. She nodded slowly. "It's me, but something's changed." She walked toward the machine, and it reacted again. The walls pulsed brighter. The floor lit up under her feet. The machine spoke once more. "Link complete. Hybrid synchronization detected." Ethan looked between her and the console. "You linked with this thing?" "I didn't mean to," she said. "It just happened. It responded to you, and then it reached for me. It's like it knew us both." The machine glowed steadily now, calm and quiet, as if it had found what it was waiting for. Lysera stepped beside Ethan and touched the side of the device. "I feel like I can breathe for the first time," she said. "My power was sealed, not lost." "They feared it," Ethan said, understanding now. "That's why they chained you." Lysera clenched her fists, power still dancing across her skin. "They feared what I could become. Now they'll learn what that really means." Before Ethan could speak, the machine gave one final alert. "Warning, multiple life forms approaching. Hostile." Ethan looked at Lysera. "You ready?" She smiled, and this time it wasn't tired, it was fierce. "I've never been more ready." Above the ruins, the sky darkened with incoming ships, and this time, the girl they came to chain would be waiting with fire in her hands, and a human at her side. The ground trembled beneath Ethan's boots. Dust rose like smoke from the cracked earth around the temple. He stood at the edge of the ancient chamber, staring down at the metal heart buried beneath the sand. The war machine was bigger than anything he had ever seen, its surface scarred and worn by centuries. But it pulsed with life alive in a way that made his skin crawl. Lysera stepped beside him, her eyes wide. "This is what they hid from the galaxy," she whispered. "The weapon our people lost." Ethan reached out and touched the cold metal. A sudden jolt shot through his hand. The machine hummed louder, responding to him. It scanned his palm, lights flickering like it was waking from a deep sleep. Lysera watched in disbelief. "The machine knows you," she said. "Why does it respond to a human and not me?" Ethan pulled his hand back slowly. "I don't know," he said, "but I'm the only one here." The machine's voice echoed softly in the chamber. "Authorized user detected," it said. "Access granted." Lysera's face grew pale. "This was not meant to happen," she said. "Our weapon should only obey the bloodline of our leaders." Ethan stepped closer. "Maybe the machine sees something different in me. Maybe it sees a protector, not a conqueror." Suddenly, the chamber doors slammed shut behind them. A low rumble filled the room, and the walls began to shift. Panels slid open, revealing ancient weapons and glowing energy cells. The machine was preparing, awakening its defenses from the shadows. A familiar voice hissed, "It's a human controlling our greatest weapon?" Lysera spun around to see one of her former companions, cold eyes burning with hatred, a weapon raised. "You don't belong here," he spat. "This power is ours." Ethan stepped in front of Lysera. "You're wrong," he said quietly. "This power is to protect, not destroy," the former soldier charged. Weapon blazing, Lysera moved fast, energy crackling from her fingertips. She caught the attack mid-air and shattered the weapon with a single blast. The chamber shook with the force. Ethan grabbed the control panel and activated the machine's defense protocols. Energy shields sprang up, blocking the soldier's path. Lysera stood beside Ethan, her power glowing brighter. Together, they were a force no one expected. The soldier growled and retreated into the darkness. "Next time you won't be so lucky," he warned. But Ethan and Lysera were already turning back to the machine, their bond stronger than ever. The war machine's core glowed with new life, its energy now linked to both of them. They had awakened something ancient and powerful, and together they would face whatever came next. Outside, the wind howled through the ruins. A storm was coming, and it carried with it the promise of a battle that could change everything. The sky was heavy with dark clouds. Thunder rolled over the distant mountains like a warning. Ethan and Lysera stood side by side at the edge of the ruined temple. The war machine behind them hummed softly, its power now quiet but ready. Their breaths came fast, their eyes sharp, because the enemy was coming from the shadows of the crumbling walls. Figures emerged, soldiers of Lysera's old squad, faces cruel and cold, eyes full of hate. They carried weapons that glowed with deadly energy. "We are here to finish what we started," their leader said, voice low and hard. Lysera's chest tightened, but she did not falter. Ethan stepped forward, unarmed but fearless. "Stop," Ethan said firmly. "This ends here." The soldiers laughed, mocking him. "A human thinks he can protect the traitor?" Lysera looked at Ethan and then at her enemies. Her power flared to life, golden and fierce. She raised her hands and energy crackled in the air. "You left me to die," she said coldly. "But I am stronger now." The soldiers charged, but Ethan and Lysera moved as one. Ethan dodged and blocked, using every skill he had. Lysera unleashed blasts of energy that knocked enemies back. Their bond was unbreakable, a force the attackers never expected. One by one, the soldiers fell, or fled. Their leader stood alone, wounded and angry. "Mercy?" he spat. "You deserve none." Lysera stepped forward, calm but powerful. "I choose mercy," she said. "Because I am better than you." She spared him, letting him live with his shame. Ethan looked at her with respect. Together, they walked Away from the battlefield, the ruins behind them silent once more. Lysera smiled for the first time in a long while. Maybe humans are not so weak after all, she said softly. Ethan grinned. And maybe aliens are stronger than they think. Above them, the storm passed. The sun broke through the clouds. A new day had come, and with it, a new beginning for both of them.